Now, the Nigeria Labour Congress has called on Nigerian workers and citizens to boycott the services of telecom operators daily between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. starting today in protest against the recent Telecom's tariff hike. This follows the implementation of a 50% tariff increase approved by the Nigerian Communications Commission, with one of the operators rolling it out on Monday. In a communique signed by NLC President Joe Ajaero and General Secretary Emmanuel Gwaja, the union urged Nigerians to suspend data purchases from the affected telecom operators, accusing them of exploiting consumers. The NLC has also warned that if the companies fail to revert to the old tariff by the end of February 2025, a full-scale shutdown of the operations nationwide will begin on the 1st of March. Let's head now to the Parliament, where the controversial tax reform bills presented to the National Assembly by President Bola Tinubu have passed a second reading on the floor of the House of Representatives, following overwhelming support from lawmakers. Now, this debate on the four consolidated tax reform bills had been suspended twice, as the bills received criticism from some lawmakers and governors of some states. Our correspondent Idong Joseph reports.
Leading the debate on the four consolidated bills after multiple suspensions in November and December last year due to controversies surrounding the proposed reforms, the majority leader of the House, Julius Ehonvere, says that the bills, if passed, will improve revenue mobilization, protect low-income earners, and create a competitive environment for investments.
But suffice to say that these reforms for individuals, for the ordinary Nigerian, the youth, families will benefit extensively, because for the first time there will be a complete exemption of low-income workers earning up to 1 million naira per annum.
The Nigeria Tax Bill, the Tax Administration Bill, the Joint Revenue Board Establishment, and the Nigeria Revenue Service Bill were transmitted by President Bola Tinubu on October the 3rd, 2024. However, they faced opposition from many lawmakers and northern state governors. This time, lawmakers overwhelmingly supported the proposed reforms, stating that the delay in debate allowed for a thorough review of the merit and demerit of the bills.
And this particular bill, I want to note, has made adequate provision for having more of the VAT proceed going to state government from what used to be the share of the federal government, from 15% to 10%, which I think is very, very commendable.
Section 164 sub 4A and B provides exemptions and reliefs for additional employment for companies. This bill proposes a 50% discount or rebate for them, and it's a way of improving employment opportunity for our teeming unemployed.
I want to also concur with my colleagues as we remain silent and also go through the bill. We find it worthy for it to be read for the second time.
Despite their support, some lawmakers raised concerns over specific clauses in the bills that may conflict with the Constitution.
They have not stated clearly whether they mean by consumption derivation or derivation based on generation.
The funds generated should be channeled towards amenities, basic amenities that will enhance the livelihood in our country.
After an extensive deliberation that lasted several hours on the tax reform bills, which were the main subject of the day's legislative proceedings, the House referred the four bills to the Committee on Finance for further legislative action. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
Staying with the Parliament, the Nigerian Senate has raised concerns over the whereabouts of over 3,900 missing firearms, as revealed during an investigative hearing by the Public Accounts Committee. An audit report from the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation exposed discrepancies in police armory records between 2000 and 2020, raising alarms over the security implications of the missing weapons. News Central's National Assembly correspondent brings the details.
The Auditor General of the Federation reported to lawmakers that in 2018, an audit queried the disappearance of 178,459 different types of arms and ammunition from the police armory without any trace. Additionally, by January 2020, another 3,907 assorted rifles and pistols had vanished from various police formations nationwide.
The total number of lost firearms as reported as at 31st December 2018 stood at 178,459 pieces. Out of this number, 88,078 were AK-47 rifles, 3,907 assorted rifles and pistols across different police formations that could not be accounted for as at January 2020.
The Senate Committee on Public Accounts criticized the Nigerian police force for its failure to trace the missing firearms or apprehend those responsible.
This is a very big revelation for Nigerians to see what is happening. If 3,900 firearms, mainly AK-47 and other rifles, are in the hands of enemies, that tells you that we are not safe. Even the police is not safe. So we need a proper explanation to this so that we can move this country forward.
In response, the Nigerian police force defended itself, stating that the Inspector General of Police regularly audits firearms and remains committed to ensuring accountability.
Some commands and formation did not report loss of firearms and ammunition. Consequently, signals were sent to the affected formation to produce comprehensive investigation report on the loss of the said ammunition and on the firearms and ammunition. What you have just said is not correct.
I'm telling you.
Whether by common sense
or by law.
To make the assumption you have made it to insult the intelligence of the police.
I'm telling you.
When you suggest to us that if an officer moves from Benin on official escort duty to which you officially and legally assigned him, that you will presume his weapon is no longer with him.
However, lawmakers insist that the police provides a clear and public explanation regarding the missing firearms, particularly given rising security concerns across the country. Senators also cited previous reports of security personnel selling arms to criminals, stressing that transparency and accountability are crucial in addressing the issue. In Abuja for News Central, I'm Sagir Ibrahim.
Nigeria's Senate has passed 4 key bills, including the National Youth Service Corps, Trust Fund Establishment Bill, and 3 Development Commission bills for the Northwest, Southwest, and Southeast regions. These bills were recommitted to the Committee of the Whole before receiving final approval. Our National Assembly correspondent still brings details from the Senate plenary.
The motion for recommittal was moved by Senate Leader Opeyemi Bamidele, who explained that the bills had contradicted certain sections of the Nigerian Constitution. Bamidele says that lawmakers acted in accordance with Orders 1B and 52 of the Senate Standing Rules, particularly focusing on clauses 14, 15, and 4 sub 1 of the respective bills.
Senate observes that the funding clauses for the Commission and the fund which are proposed to be established as provided in these bills appear to contradict Section 162 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended. Senate is aware that Section 1, subsections 1 and 3 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended provide that the Constitution is supreme and any law that contradicts the Constitution shall be null and void to the extent of the contradiction.
Following the passage of the bill, the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, commended lawmakers for their commitment to strengthening national development initiatives.
So by these various amendments, from the NYC Act to the Northwest Development Act to the Southeast Development Commission Act to the Southwest Development Commission Act, all are now brought into conformity with the Nigerian Constitution. And we shall now direct that they be transmitted to Mr. President for action. I thank you all.
The Senate also considered the bill seeking to amend the Orthopedic Hospitals Management Board Act, which passed the third reading. Sponsored by Umar Buba, representing Bauchi South in the Senate, the bill seeks to establish an orthopedic hospital in Toro, Bauchi State. The bill was passed following the submission and consideration of a report presented by Ipalibo Banigo, chair of the Committee on Health, Secondary and Tertiary Education.
And so our objectives have been that the Federal Orthopedic Hospital, when established in Toro, in Bauchi State, will provide services, diagnostic services, treatment services, from traumatic events such as accidental falls, car accidents, sports injuries, and other emergencies.
When we want to talk about technical areas in education and also technical areas in health, I think these are areas that will need our attention and will need our support.
Following the report submission, the Senate collapsed its plenary into the Committee of the Whole, where the bill underwent a clause-by-clause consideration before being approved.
A bill for an act to amend the Orthopedic Hospitals Management Board Act Cap 010, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2002 and 4, to provide for the establishment of the Orthopedic Hospital in Toro, Bauchi State, and for related matters 2025. Third reading taken and passed.
Afterwards, plenary was adjourned to the next legislative day to allow standing committees to finalize engagements for the passage of the 2025 budget. In Abuja for News Central, I'm Sagir Ibrahim.
Many thanks for staying with us. Now, still on the news, this is to reiterate that the Nigerian Labour Congress has called on Nigerian workers and citizens to boycott the services of telecom operators daily between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. starting today in protest against a recent telecom's tariff hike. And now the people have said that if the prices are not reverted to the original one or the previous one before the end of February, then there will be a complete shutdown of their services. And to join us to discuss this, we have a guest with us in the studio who will be talking about this extensively with us. Okay, so we have Mr. Theophilus Akatugba joining us. Thank you so much, Mr. Theophilus, for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Good
Absolute
afternoon.
Pleasure to have you join us. Good afternoon to you too. About the tariff hike, first off, what is your take on the tariff hike? Because you know, some of the justifications now for some of these actions is that we need to have a more stable economy, and you know, they have to dip their things in everything that they can, basically, to get as much money to sustain the economy. What is your take on it?
Well, my take is that first, it is a natural cry for people to want prices to remain stable and to remain the same over a long period of time. And the telecom companies have not increased their tariffs arbitrarily, and they have not done so over a long period of time. And they have been running their businesses under very high cost and costs that are continuing to increase since the deregulation of the exchange rate, the floating of the currency, the increase in petroleum prices, and all other incidental costs that have come upon the telecom companies. They have asked for so much in increments, and something less than they asked for has been approved. One must give consideration, because everywhere we are engaged in commercial activities, we find that prices have gone up, and people are no longer able to render their services at the previous prices. Everyone is asking for the markets, so it's evidence that prices are going up. People are complaining, and so that the NLC is complaining is understood. So my opinion is that the telecom company deserve to raise prices, but whether 50% is too much or midway, none of us know truly, because we don't have the details of the operational cost.
Do you think there could have been any other alternative as opposed to raising prices, basically?
The only alternative that I know is that quality of service will go down if you are unable to render a service at a price that can give you comfort. What you do is to cut corners. Sometimes you'll find that some cell sites will not operate, others will operate, and you who is not close to a cell site will experience network difficulties. This is common in many other African countries. Having lived in Ghana for 20 years, I realized at that time that prices of telecom services were cheaper in Nigeria. In fact, in some African countries, you are not able to make a direct phone call. Making a call to some of the African countries is really very expensive, and Nigeria has enjoyed relatively low prices for a long time. I am not a telco operator, but I sympathize with them because I understand how they operate and because I have friends who render services to them. I know the cost of maintaining cell sites and all other costs that they are, that they are confronted with. So the NLC, in my opinion, should engage rather than threaten action.
So why is it that in this part of the continent, we kind of wait for a possible execution of an intention that has been long existent? For example, they have been talking about tariff hike for the longest time. Why is it that the NLC did not initiate conversation? The same way we see a lot of other plans put in motion, and then that's when you see a retaliatory motion as well. Why do we wait until the last minute before we try to establish communication?
In fact, this is very brilliant. Your question is very apt. You know why? Because the NLC appear not to have a very effective engagement machinery. When they were talking about fuel subsidy removal, the NLC did not do the required or the kind of engagement needed for them to understand and also educate their people about the implication and the far-reaching effect of the removal of subsidy. They always wait. When the decision is taken, then they threaten action. For example, you want to threaten action against telcos. This is private enterprise. It's not a government-rendered service, except you want them to pack up and then you look for new guys to come and operate in the same system, and they surely will come with new prices that reflect the current economic situation. So I think, like you said, we're not proactive. A lot of us in this country, including all our government agencies and institutions, they wait for the problem, then we react. And that's not the best way to develop.
Okay, so according to the estimate that have been put forward, they said that a 10% increase in telecommunication costs would reduce a small business profitability up to 7%. So basically, this 50% increase in telecommunication tariffs would impact not just the sellers now, but the consumers, particularly the low-income households and the low-income businesses as well. So what are the potential socioeconomic consequences that this price hike will have?
Well, there's no increment in any component of your business that does not have an impact. What you do is to see how less you can consume that service or how much that service plays in the delivery of your service. Not every company rely on telecom services to operate, but you rely on telecom services to enjoy what you call augmented benefits like making calls or using data or all other telecom services to make your business, operate. For example, if this is done, streaming services will have low traffic. Those who use internet for driving video and all audio-visual materials, who use data to transmit information, of course, will impact in the components, the component contribution of that part. What can they do? What can we do? This is all the implication of the deregulation of our economy, the implication of removal of fuel subsidy, the floating of the currency. This is why previous governments fear to tamper with these very areas of our life.
All right, one final question before I let you go, Mr. Theophilus. At this point, what should be the way out if there's any situation at all?
The way out is for the NLC to try to engage with the telecom companies and try to understand first their cost of operation, the challenges they face, and then find a way that the telecom company can have what you call tariff scales in order to reach out to low users. Those who are high users may have to pay a bit more, while those who are, peasants, the poor people, those who buy, recharge cards that that do not use more airtime to pay less. That way, I think it can have a reduced effect on the vulnerable and the very poor.
All right, Mr. Theophilus Akatugba, thank you so much for joining us to discuss this. We're looking forward to seeing how this turns out, but thank you for your very brilliant input.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you.
All right, now to more stories. The transmission company of Nigeria says that electricity has been restored to parts of the country following Wednesday's blackout. TCN spokesperson Ndidimba confirmed that the outage was triggered by the tripping of the Omotosho-Ikeja West 330 kV transmission line at 11:34 a.m. local time, disrupting power supply to Lagos, Abuja and Osogbo. Now, while other sections of the grid remain stable, the affected line has now been restored. However, some areas in Abuja are still awaiting reconnection. TCN has reiterated its commitment to grid stability, but this latest incident, coming after a similar national grid failure in January, has renewed concerns over the reliability of Nigeria's power infrastructure. Still talking power, the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company has confirmed that full power supply to the Federal Capital Territory and surrounding areas will be restored by February 23rd. This follows ongoing repairs by the Transmission Company of Nigeria on an underground transmission line vandalized near Millennium Park in Abuja. The AEDC said TCN has assured it of completing the repairs on schedule. In recent weeks, power outages have affected at least 188 locations within AEDC's coverage area, with the company attributing disruptions to feeder fault, maintenance work and vandalism, despite generating 229.39 billion naira in electricity revenue in the first 11 months of 2024. Now, AEDC has reassured customers that engineers are working around the clock to ensure and restore stable supply and has urged patience as final repairs are completed. And now to politics. As the crisis in Nigeria's main opposition party, the People's Democratic Party, intensifies, Prince Uche Secondus, the party's former national chairman, has urged those exacerbating the crisis to cease and allow the party to conclude its transformational cycle of change. Secondus made the call while speaking with journalists in Rivers State about the ongoing political crisis rocking the party.
I believe that everything is transformative. Times will tell. Situations will change from one likely situation to all the other. I believe that we're expecting better. After the party will pass through all the difficult challenges and turmoil, there will come a time that the party will play its role very well, and more importantly, those who are in charge of government should allow the political parties to develop and grow. They should not kill it. Those in government should not kill all the other political parties. If they do, it will be a doom for the country.
The People's Democratic Party, the PDP, has officially confirmed Ude Okoye as substantive national secretary. A statement from PDP's National Publicity Secretary, Debo Olugwagba, said the National Working Committee, NWC, made the decision after reviewing legal judgments affirming Okoye's position. The NWC considered a High Court ruling in Enugu, a Court of Appeal judgment, and legal opinions from top lawyers, including Dr. Kabiru Turaki. The statement emphasized that the confirmation aligns with court rulings and that no superior judgment contradicts Okoye's appointment. With this decision, Okoye is now fully recognized as the PDP's national secretary. You're still live with us on the news. It's time to go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about education matters. Do stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Now to Education Matters. President Bola Tinubu has approved the establishment of a Federal University of Applied Sciences at the southern Kaduna area of Kaduna State. And President Tinubu, who was represented by the Vice President Kashim Shettima at the formal handover of the university to the Governor of Kaduna State, ordered the Education Ministry to capture the university in its 2025 appropriations. Now, the university, initially registered as NOC University Kachia Kaduna, was forfeited to the federal government as proceeds of financial crimes, will offer courses in applied and medical sciences. Nigeria's Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, has imposed a one-year freeze on new applications for polytechnics and monotechnics nationwide, citing the need for better regulation and quality improvement. However, health institutions are exempt due to persistent low enrollment. The National Board for Technical Education announced the decision on Thursday, saying it takes immediate effect. Institutions awaiting approval must now pay 4 million naira in application fees, plus 2 million naira per program for polytechnics, while monotechnics face a 2 million naira base fee and 1 million naira per program. The NBT says the move will ensure proper student distribution and strengthen Nigeria's technical and vocational education and training system. The Federal Capital Territory Administration says it will commence the monitoring of Almajiri schools within the capital. This followed a Security Council meeting between the Minister of the Federal Capital and heads of security agencies within the FCT. The Police Commissioner says that the Council has resolved to identify the schools, profile the operations, and also be more conscious of persons migrating into the capital.
At the end of the meeting, agreed, or rather directed, a committee be set up by us, and then he awaits the outcome of it in 2 weeks. He has a mandate to see how it's going to work out with the area council chairman for them to identify schools where these children are being brought in to learn, to profile those organizing these schools, to have the pictures, phone numbers of people organizing these groups, and for them to work out means of working with them in future, and probably to find out what the government can do to ensure that they are kept in check, and to find out the content of the training they are giving these students in their various schools.
Away from that now, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has commended the spate of construction works ongoing at several road corridors and construction sites within the capital. This was as the minister paid an on-the-site visit to inspect the construction of major roads and bridges within the capital.
With the speed of work by the various contractors, particularly those who are carrying out road construction, Jealous Beggar, CGC, as we saw, and quite impressive. I believe that we're going to, meet up like they promised, by the grace of God, by May this year, and look at the judges' quarters, the FCT, the Trial High Court, and the Court of Appeal. It's really amazing with the level of the level they've gotten to. And that's what I've always said, that with proper management of funds, contractors are willing to put in their best. When they see that funds are coming, they will not hesitate to work.
Now, outside Nigeria, dozens of displaced people are evacuating a camp in Goma, Eastern DR Congo, after the Rwanda-backed M23 armed group issued a 72-hour ultimatum. Now, camp officials confirmed the warning, which has left many with no safe place to go. M23 seized control of Goma last month, escalating violence in the region. Thousands remain stranded as humanitarian agencies struggle to provide aid amid the ongoing conflict.
Sadaka kidogo wanaweza tuko na batateumu, tuko na babilema, na kuko wenye habana kwenye kwa kwenda. Leo tuko harafikiana kuvitu venye hatukuwazaka na mbele.
Hatuna nafasi ya kwenda kwetu, Masisi washapiga masasi, manyumba zishabomoka, ni pori. Hakuna manatokaka hapa sasa taenda lima. Hakuna manatokaka hapa sasa taenda vunja kuni.
Today, the world celebrates a medium that has shaped communication for over a century: radio. From emergency broadcasts to chart-topping music, radio remains a powerful tool for information, entertainment, and social connection, especially in an era of widespread misinformation. Proclaimed by UNESCO in 2011 and endorsed by the United Nations in 2012, World Radio Day, observed annually on February 13th, honors the role of radio in reaching remote communities, delivering critical updates in crisis, and amplifying diverse voices. Now, to discuss more on this, we're joined by Ismail Mojelifa Setabila, the head producer and presenter at Data FM radio station in Johannesburg. Thank you so much, Ismail, for joining us. Now, Ismail, what does this day mean to you personally as someone who dedicates their time and their talent to this medium?
Good afternoon, ma'am, to the viewers as well. This day is the most important day for me as a radio personnel, and I also believe to other radio personnels outside. Today, it marks the most important day of us having to acknowledge the effort that we put into relating the stories, painting pictures through the year. And today, it's a milestone, and since it was celebrated, we also were inspired as well. And today, here is the day, the most important one on this specific medium that is used as a means of communication and to translate, most importantly, to educate our people and entertain as well, most importantly, to reach out and be the voice of the voiceless.
Right. Now, can you recall your earliest memory of listening to the radio? Did that spark any early interest in you that made you want to be on radio? And what initially attracted you to this career in radio journalism specifically?
Yeah, definitely. I remember very well. It was my first day to go to school. And that specific presenter actually became my time slot. The person was able to make me know when I'm late and when I'm early. So that moment, I'll always cherish it because of it revived something into me, and it taught me the most important thing of being creative and to learn the art of sending a message in a specific way, especially on radio. So yeah, that moment is so important to me, and I hope it has inspired most of the people within our region, as I was inspired as well.
All right, now, with the rise of podcasts, streaming services, and other digital platforms, how do you see radio evolving in the coming years? What role do you think radio will play in the future of media?
You know, it is a challenge, though technology is taking over in everything. But having things like podcast, actually, they are killing the art because of in radio. Remember that people only listen to your voice, and you translate and relate stories. You put the person to a scene by just a voice, the tone, and how you relate the story. So with a podcast, it's more of people being able to see and off with some of the things which will make people be curious. It's like to hear the voice and want to see the facial or expression or even the face of the presenter. How do they look? Do they sound? Do they look like their voices? Do they actually do they have the look of the current content that they are pushing? So with podcast, it's a different story because of now people get to see. I think the podcast is influenced by the dramas actually that are occurred on the studios, whereby now visually people are going to be able to see it. But I think it is going to affect the history or the purpose of radio itself, because this medium has its own special way of sending message and reaching out to people. Even myself, I was developed through radio, whereby I'm now a community leader and activist. We do a lot of things, hold people accountable, expose injustice, and all those things are the drama that when we share them on radio, I mean, it puts you there, able to imagine what's happening or how this thing happened, whatever that we are relating. So with the podcast, it's more of being visual and showing off. I mean, presenters, you don't even have to worry about how you look, what are you wearing, but with podcast, it's a different.
All right, thank you so much for joining us and discussing World Radio Day. And I would say happy World Radio Day to you. Thanks a lot.
No, thank you so much. And to all the radio presenters, everyone who's in radio, your producers, the people who put effort to make sure that there is content, we wish them all the best. And we hope that this medium grows and the art is kept to the next coming generations. And we hopefully that it will be an education that will last forever and ever and ever.
Most definitely. Thank you so much. Many thanks for staying with us. Now to stories outside the African continent. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has arrived at NATO headquarters in Brussels, reaffirming that the world is a safer and freer place when NATO is strong. He's meeting with allies to discuss peace efforts and defense investment amid ongoing tensions over Ukraine. Hegseth has defended President Donald Trump's push for peace talks, with Russian leader Vladimir Putin insisting it is not a betrayal of Ukraine. And that's all on the news at this hour. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, StarTimes channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Blessings Wasugu.